So welcome to Precision Golf for today's fit. We're here with Alison Root, who's women's editor of Golf Monthly. We're really pleased to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're also going to be testing out the brand new KBS Max HL wood shafts. So with your current gamer driver, the Ping GLE, where's the game at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not unhappy with my Ping GLE 3, but I'm really looking forward to testing these new KBS shafts, simply because, well, really to get a better understanding of shafts full stop and to see what I can achieve with those in this driver.
Yeah, and primarily the Max series, I mean, these are a progression from the original Max Steel, Max Graphite into the irons, and they've done a wood shaft, so really based around the same platform. So shafts are kind of categorized into very broadly into high launch, mid launch, low launch, all those sort of aspects. But these are a lightweight shaft, so sub 50 gram dead weight, which grips normally about 50 grams. So that kind of puts into perspective how light they are. But designed around the Max series, designed around a responsive tip, and so about the load as you swing, it puts a load on the shaft and how that load transfers all the way through the shaft to create some kick and launch at the bottom end. So it's about maximising energy transfer, maximising height, and they've tracked those off from original iron shaft designs and kept exactly the same design profile of shaft. So bend profile, EO profile for the equipment geeks out there. That's how the shaft loads and bends from the top all the way through.
Taking.
No, I know there's a lot of gumph there, isn't there? So, but ultimately, we'll be testing how's your current driver perform, and then how do these change that, and why would someone look to use these? So,
great.
So
let's go.
We'll get some data. And generally, would you say is driving a good bit of the game, something that you've always
yeah,
enjoyed?
I'm normally fairly consistent off the tee, quite pretty straight.
Yeah.
I don't want to tempt fate.
And anything from a swing point of view that you're actually kind of working on at the moment, or?
I know what I should be working on. Generally in my game, to introduce more wrist hinge, because that's where I lose distance anyway.
Got it. Yep.
But I think, unfortunately, I've kind of manufactured a swing.
Yeah.
And I haven't had the time or inclination for many years to get out of that. So.
And the thing is, if it's going straight as well, then it's actually you're introducing a little bit more wrist hinge. Yes, it creates more speed, but so what you're doing is very safe from a directional point of view, and in play works for amateur golfers. I know the pros all want to, they're all saying hit it further, but actually for us irregular players, in the fairway tends to help quite a lot. Yeah.
But then you need a good short game to go with that.
Oh, there's always something with golfers, isn't there? As golfers, we're very good at talking ourselves down as well. That I've seen over the years. Swing. What we'll do, we'll get 4 or 5 or 6, get a good base average so we can look at how the current club's performing and take stock of performance, and then we've got a good comparison point. Swing. Any other sports you've done a lot of in particular?
Tennis.
Okay.
That was my sport growing up, so that's what happened. That I think if you've got eye-ball coordination, and I always say now, when you start playing golf, go and see a pro.
Yeah.
Have proper lessons.
100%. Yeah, much better do that first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tennis. What surface did you play?
Oh, everything.
Everything. Because certainly a grass court historically was more, so if you're a kind of clay court, then it's heavy western grip and lots of topspin, which actually isn't great for golf. But I grew up playing grass court tennis.
Flat.
And it's much more of a golf kind of stroke. Yeah. So actually, so someone like Tim Henman, great golfer, because he was much more of that kind of square hit through. Whereas, Rafa Nadal's got an interesting action. He's a very talented man, but it's quirky. Great, lovely. Okay, we'll take a little bit of a look at the data from there. So there's some nice shots there. So I'm going to go into the data screen just to look at all the shots there. So there are a load of numbers on screen, but there are some really key ones here. So obviously, club speed is club speed, miles an hour. Ball speed is ball speed in miles an hour. But that number there, the smash, that's a ratio of ball speed to club speed, so it's an efficiency ratio. So where it's very consistent, Ideally, we'd see that if we can get that up a little bit, the more towards 1.5 we can get it to, is that sort of maximum in terms of the based on what the legal limits are on driver
so that's
faces.
1.9.
So these are 1.4, 1.39, 1.4. Right. There's definitely, in principle, there's a little bit more ball speed to get out of that. Okay. But it's consistent, which is important. And then the launch angle is literally the angle it takes off at, up from the ground, and spin is backspin. So again, from the physics of the flight, there are optimum numbers for carry and run out that we'd like to achieve. Ultimately, we want consistency primarily. If we can get consistent flight, then it just means that if you've got a bunker that you know you can carry it, or sort of round here, heather short of a fairway, you can flight it over it. So if we take the averages, which I'm just going to go into here, click the right button. What I can do is look at on an optimizer based on your average club speed and the angle of attack, the delivery numbers. So delivery-wise, really nice. You hit up in it a couple of degrees, which is perfect for the driver. Club path 0.7, face to path 0.4, very, very square. No, you must be very popular in foursomes. Very, very straight. So that's great. Your delivery of the club's really, really nice. What we can see from this is that the ball speed's a little bit down, 4 or 5 miles an hour. 4 or 5 miles an hour on its own, potentially looking at up to 10 yards. So if we can maximise that, then there's a bit more distance. And the spins, launch angle's great, but the spin's a little bit on the high side. Okay. So again, if we can keep the launch angle up, drop the spin a little bit, that allied to a bit more ball speed, then there's more distance in there. So roughly speaking, 10, 11 yards. Okay. But in the main, it's performing well. I think certainly for the things that we'd look at from a fitting point of view, certainly watching you swing, you and the club are nicely in sync. You're not having to fight it, so it's not hard work to get the club moving. You're looking at the specs of it, the swing weight C0 is fairly light, but that ties in with how Ping have designed the GLE. And so certainly from a timing standpoint, if it's a bit like that, could be where there's a little bit of loss of ball speed. So from a momentum point of view, from a timing standpoint. So there are a few things in particular that we can definitely look to. Can we use the tuning of the loft just to fine tune that ball flight? And then also as we're testing with the KBS shafts, so a lot of it from that efficiency smash point of view is, does the weight of the club and the balance allow you to naturally move through the ball and find that sort of timing element without having to place the club on the back of the ball? Something that we were chatting about just before the session is it doesn't matter what age, ability, sex you are, the weight and the balance of the club, that timing side of things, that's relevant to every single golfer. Whether you're Rory McIlroy, Nelly Korda, or someone who's just started the game, we move a certain way, and we need to get the club tying into that to get the most consistency of performance for you. So, so what we'll do, now obviously KBS are focusing on the flex side of this, so we've got 2 of the flexes here with 2 absolutely fantastic, the rainbow finish is fantastic. So they're doing a variety of colours in these. I think in the other wood shafts they've got white and red and black as well, so they're really kind of majoring on the aesthetics as well. So I'm going to pop one of these. We'll start off with the softer of the 2 flexes with the regular, but I'll pop that into here. So we've got a universal system that we've got the tips on there that we can interchange into this head and see how that changes performance. But there are certainly a couple of markers where, from a fitting point of view, from a fitter's point of view, what's great is your delivery is very, very neutral. So not a massive surprise to you, say you're a tennis player. So actually in this respect, from a driving point of view, and to those watching, tapping on the ground is the way Ping released the hosel. From a driving point of view, that element of a sweep and a slightly upward strike is brilliant. So we're not having to be concerned about how you're delivering the club head. There's nothing inefficient about that, which is great.
But that's good for you to see some numbers there to work on. That's what as a fitter you want to see. Definitely.
Yeah, and ultimately, from a fitting point of view, part of a fitting is, a good result from a fitting can well be your current driver's working really well. From a fitting point of view, yes, as a business, we are here to sell clubs, but we're also here to advise on what the right clubs are. Right. And that actually is the primary function of the sessions. And if there's a change that can be made to improve performance, then yes, we can advise what it is. But sometimes the best result from our fitting is for someone to come here and go, okay, the club's great, we might change the loft slightly,
Yeah,
for example,
yeah.
but actually
It's just putting their mind
what you've
at
got
rest.
works well. Yeah, yeah, and we've all been out in the course and gone,
Yeah.
was that me, was that the clubs?
Yeah.
And
Always
actually,
blame the clubs.
oh, absolutely. There's always something, wind, noise. Yeah, we can definitely find something. But yeah, it's very much a case of, why is the club performing a certain way, and can we improve it? So let's just reference the swing weight. So swing weight, very, very similar. So from a kind of raw weight point of view, the ULT in the 250, that's again mid-40s in terms of base weight. So essentially and we've tested the HL shafts as well before we came in and done our own testing. These play very, very stable to weight, even though they're a responsive shaft. From a feel point of view, they're quite a stable feeling shaft. So be interesting to see how it changes the performance. I'll just log this spec in here.
It's funny, it feels like a different club already. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that pickup side of things. So it's the same with any stick and ball sport. The weight and the balance and the pickup, the weight distribution will change how the club moves and how it feels. So a lot of players, whether it's a tennis racket, hockey stick, cricket bat, that initial pickup, if it feels balanced, it probably suits how you move it. So functionally, we put energy into the handle, and the sciencey bit is that the inertia of how the mass is situated in the club, one has to match the other. And if they do, then all of a sudden it's effortless, and you move, the club moves with you, everything stays in sync, and you collect the ball, and life's wonderful. If it's out of sync, then you've got to compensate to deliver it. And that's then when the variations come.
You just want that effortless swing, don't you?
Absolutely.
The colour of that shaft really pops up. It's really good.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I'll see one more of that, and then I can run you through what's happening and kind of look at why it's happening essentially as well. Let's see one more. I may make a little change to the club setup as well, but we'll just watch the one more. Swing. Okay, so a couple of the earlier hits were just getting on the inside of the face, so the strike, because the balance of the shaft changed a little bit, you could see those first few swings were just getting a little bit adjusted to, so the ping shaft swings a little bit lighter.
Right.
So by that, what I mean is, even though the dead weights are very, very similar, is that it gets out in front of you a little bit more easily.
Right.
This one, you could see the hand and almost the pickup probably a little bit heavier. So as you move, the handle end just got a little behind, and then you had to fetch it slightly.
Right.
Which, by that last shot, you then did really well.
Okay.
But
It didn't feel a lot heavier.
the total weight's very, very minimal. But what we can see, if I put the differential on, there are a couple more shots just out to the right-hand side.
Okay,
and so that's where, as you move,
Yeah.
it's marginal, but the club just stayed a little bit later.
Right.
But then that last one there, from a contact point of view, that's the highest efficiency we've had.
Oh.
So it's one of those, the timing changes a little bit. And so what we all are able to do as humans is to adapt and find a way of making something work. So given a few shots, 90% of players, no matter what ability, will start to change their patterns to find a balanced delivery position. In terms of numbers wise, I'll go back into this screen. So actually what we're seeing here is quite interesting actually. Is even though for me I could see the strike point wasn't quite there, what we are seeing is in that kind of smash number, and it's just going to fall slightly off screen. I'll go into the averages because it'll show the averages. The average smash or energy transfer is slightly better.
Better.
But it's better, and even though this is on the same loft setting, it's better because it's coming out lower. Therefore, it's got a little bit more forward momentum.
Right.
So actually, from a club speed point of view,
even as even hitting into there.
yeah, and whilst this is a high launching shaft, the stock shaft has a little bit more torque. That promotes a little bit more recovery of the club head and gets the club head recovering underneath a bit more. So it actually pops it up slightly more. And that's actually losing you proportionally a little bit of ball speed. So that's where we're seeing that. We were talking about the power outage a little bit earlier on. You know, you're mile an hour and a bit quicker club speed with the original shaft, but ball speed on average, that's slightly higher.
Right.
And the flight's a little bit flatter.
Okay.
But we can also see in your delivery, your club path, very, very, very repeating. I mean, very neutral delivery, slightly up again, basically dead square through. But the club face is a little more open with this one.
Right.
So on the one hand, we're creating, in principle, a better strike, but the face being a little bit more open is then losing you a little bit of performance from the spin. So they're both good sides and some slight drop-offs. So really quite interesting overall. I'm going to have a look at one other.
So the spin rate on that as well was.
Yeah, we don't want it to be higher.
Down.
Yeah, so we don't want higher. We want it to have that forward momentum and run out.
Yeah.
And that was the bit where you're losing out a little bit on this one. As the spin's slightly high, so it's good for carry, but then it lands a little bit soft. Let's compare the strike point. So strike point with that shaft. Central, maybe erring a little lower on the face, one out the heel, and then with your current one. So interesting, a more consistent strike point, but a little bit more on the inside of the head, and so that may be where you're losing a little bit of ball speed. So, so some interesting comparisons there. I'll pop the other shaft in as a comparison point there. So this one actually goes marginally heavier, but it does exaggerate the change slightly, which is a good thing. So we always like to do that in a fit. We need to find out where too far is to then work out where the kind of the median point is. So, and this is one of the things, you know, there are a lot of players that think, oh, I'm not very consistent, I'm not very good, I shouldn't do this. There are some incredibly consistent players out there who may not play off what they perceive as low handicap golf, but actually most of us do what we do very, very consistently. Just golf, because the ball goes such a long way, takes such a small variance to go off target that we don't think we're very good.
No.
So, golf is tough.
You're telling me.
Mind you, I'm glad I'm not stood the other side of the net to Novak Djokovic or one of those, or Serena or one of those players. So this one, the dead weight of the shaft just moves up a little bit.
Right.
So based on what we saw with the previous shaft, it'll be interesting to see whether that exaggerates that difference a little bit more.
That felt good.
It's good contact, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a much better distance in terms of our left side open, so just
Okay. Just the one more would be great. Yeah. So, I think what's good with this for you, where it might feel very good, is that solidity at impact. It's funny, we've got all this equipment, but the sound tells us quite a lot. However, what we're seeing now is how much further right that's starting to go. So as you move through, the club's a little bit behind you, then you're having just a drag on it, and that's just, I'll use this for that one, it's just leaving the club head behind a little bit, hence the face staying open, they're just drifting out right. So we can see in the dispersion pattern there, hit solidly, but a little bit shorter, a little more to the right. And then from a numbers point of view, the club face, again, your delivery is one of the most consistent I've seen in 20 years. you could sell that to a lot of people, that delivery.
Did you get that?
But the club
Did you get
face, we can see there with your original setup, club face on average 0.4 of a degree closed. Then with the first KBS 2.5 degrees open, and then with that one that's gone a little heavier, 4.9 degrees open. So there is a progression, a consistency of what that little bit of an addition of weight is doing to your action. The strike point, again, ball speed, you're not losing ball speed.
No.
It is slightly less club speed than your original one, but the ball speed's very, very stable. But that one went higher again because the face was open a little bit more. So pushing the weight up, for you, what it does, whilst it's very, the spin to launch angle, considering the face angle isn't that high, but it's not letting you naturally square the face up. So on course, you then will start to bring your hands in, flip the face over, maybe get the right shoulder in to square it up, and lose a little bit of dispersion. So I'm going to go, we'll go back again. I'll go back to this and back to this, just to we'll sort of see as we drop a little more weight back off.
That's really interesting that just changing a shaft can do that, because I know I have that tendency to bring that and hit out that way.
So some of that will be the tennis. There is that clearing of the hips with tennis. So when I learned to play on grass, it was more step into it in that way, but there's still that clearance to get that bit of width through. And so that, whilst your swing is online, you will have, your body will lead. It's much more of a body turn through than a pull with the handle. But even just a small change in dead weight, we're looking at 10% of the shaft weight, 4 or 5 grams. It doesn't take much, and considering, there are, if we were to kind of carry on testing, we could go from 45, 46 grams, we could go all the way up to, not that we would, go up to 80 grams. There's such a wide variety of shafts and differences out there. We can really dial into very small amounts.
And I think that's where people don't realise the importance of the shafts, because I could understand that if I was having a change in the head, then I would kind of get that, stupidly understand that a bit better, thinking, it's not because of the shaft. Do you know what I mean? That's
I mean, the information on the heads is more readily available out there, and it's more definite. So you go higher loft, the ball goes higher. You go lower loft, the ball goes lower. You go more forgiving, it's better off centre. You go lower spin, it might go longer, but it's less margin of error. It's more clear what the heads do, or they're a draw bias head or a fade bias head. Shafts are. There are lots of shades of grey with shafts. There's lots of definitely maybes about shafts, and I think that's one of the difficulties, is understanding why would you use a particular shaft versus another shaft, and ultimately, primarily, functionally, you and this is a timing implement. If you take any other stick and ball sport, like tennis racket, the strings create a little bit of variance on the flight and the control, but they're not going to dictate whether you can actually meet the ball at the right point.
Sure.
Or say cricket bat, hockey stick, because you're accelerating the mass at a high rate, you're going from 0 to 60 miles an hour in half a second, then actually the momentum builds up a heck of a lot. And frame-wise, our bodies aren't that stable. We've got kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hinges, moving parts. So if we in the club are in sync, we can stay balanced, which is really critical, and start to develop speed, but stay in posture, and therefore keep the club controlled. The moment we in the club get out of sync, then it changes the pitch of swing, which changes up pitch of our frame, which changes the club face location, which then leads to. But that's very hard to say, oh right, you swing it at X way, you'll use Y shaft, because it just doesn't work like that. No. Some of the long drive players, male and female, are all using some very, very soft shafts or very light shafts. You look at it and go, well, historically they've used very stiff, very heavy because they're big and strong. And you go, well, actually, then we're now starting to look at the biomechanics of it. They're moving fast, so actually does a lighter implement help them generate more speed? So it's changing the whole way we look at the shafts. And flex plays a part in terms of height and in terms of feel, and an important part in that. But the focus historically has only ever been on, right, you swing it fast, you must play heavy, or you swing it slow, you must play light. Well, actually not necessarily. So yeah, we're starting to understand it better now as an industry. So we'll go back to this one, which is just dropping a little bit of weight back out. Yeah, so it's only a couple of grams, but going back to that one, the club's more in front of you. So as you start down, the club comes with you, so it's naturally squaring the face up rather than getting behind and you having then to square it off. So the first one back with it, that you hit the previous shot, face to path, or path half a degree into out, face 1 degree closed. But that's then straight away down the line rather than out that way.
Right.
So then by doing that, you're not going to have to then go, right, I need to change my swing to square this up.
Yeah.
That's, when fitting does its job, the club complements what you do rather than makes you have to compensate to deliver it. But both of those have just gone straighter and a little bit longer again. Gave that one a bit extra. A little bit. You can tell there was a bit more in that one. So left that a little bit open, but it was a stronger move. So I'll watch one more of that, and then we'll pop the original one back in as a contrast.
I'm probably trying to concentrate as well, keeping that back.
Okay, yeah. So those last two are a little bit more to the right. A little bit more to the right, but it's less hard work. So you can see straight away the first one you didn't. Sometimes the first swings with the change are the best ones to use from a fitting point of view because they're just a swing. There's less conscious thought in there. So they actually kind of mimic the most natural movement. But let me pop. Interesting to pop the original one back in. So I'll just reinstate. There we go, so that's just then reinstating the original setup. And then just the one more, and then we'll kind of root back and look at the data again.
That went right.
So I think overall, between the shafts, certainly the stiff, the 45 was a little heavy for sure. And there's not a lot between these two, between the 42 reg, the rainbow finish, and your current one. But it always depends a little bit on how much effort you want to put into it. That shaft moves really easily. You can see you're not having to fight it at all. You could just almost just clip it away, and it's easy to swing. If you were looking to be or getting a little bit more positive with the swing and wanted something a little bit more to hit against, potentially something that feels a little bit more stable, a little stronger, that's then when I think that gives you a little bit more. It's, I say in terms of numbers wise, there's very little between them all. There's a yard between all of them. But I think the order's reversed because of the order we've just hit them. But what this is showing is that, as we saw earlier, the face angle is easier to square up with that.
Right.
Because it swings just that little bit lighter. It's a slightly different balance point. And actually, yeah, that one is a couple of grams lighter. I think, and if you were looking to be a bit more aggressive with the swing and hit at it a little bit more, I think that's then where the extra, I guess, structural rigidity of the shaft, it's a little bit of a stronger, how would I describe it? The actual material's a little bit more stable, and certainly the feel's going to be a little bit stronger, but it suits a marginally more aggressive move. It gives you a bit more to hit against, whereas in principle, like that, the last swing, the more effort you put into that, you could lose it a little bit.
Yeah.
However, for a quieter, more kind of tempo-oriented swing, that's moving really well, and we can see how easy it is to square up. So there are elements of both where you're able to get them squared off really nicely. We can see, slightly more consistent. These are the tolerances on spin. Slightly more consistency of spin with the slightly firmer shaft. Now the last shot was a little bit of a misstrike, which is going to amplify those a little bit. And the flight's just a touch lower with that one, but marginal. Ultimately, because what you do is so repeating, in principle we can squeeze a little bit more ball speed out of that, but it's whether you'd want to hit it a little bit more, which then starts to get the best out of it for you.
Welly.
Yeah, and that's really down to what you're most comfortable doing. Both actually work very well, and so with both shafts, I'll just open these up. There's a 143 efficiency there with your current one. With the KBS, we got up to a 145. So proportionate ball speed. There's a little bit more proportionate ball speed because of there's a little less kick under with that, so it delivers dynamically a little bit less loft, which helps the ball come out forwards a little bit more. If we were saying, right, would this be worth making a change, I think it's more a case of how aggressive would you want the swing to be, and would you want to build towards that being optimal. Right now, it'd be very hard to argue against that setup because you're so repeating with it, and potentially we might turn the loft down a little bit. Well, so when summer arrives and the ground firms up, if it ever does, you might squeeze just a little bit more run out of it, but carry-wise it's very efficient. So there are potentially marginal gains, but you swing both of them very well. So it's one of those where, is there enough difference to warrant a change? I would argue probably not. No. But equally speaking, if that felt more stable and gave you the confidence to get into it a little bit more and work a little bit more rotation speed into it, then it could facilitate that. So plus points on both
that one
sides.
did feel very solid, but as you say, probably just marginal. And I'm used to this. So.
Well, there's an element of that, but we could see by taking the setup only a little bit away from it, it didn't work as well. So the good side is it works for the right reasons. So we're not seeing big compensations, and so yes, we can, as players, we can adapt to things, but you're not having to with that.
No.
So I think that's the key thing. But maybe a little bit of a toy around. I think when the ground's firmer, you can get away with a bit less loft. One, the conditions are warmer, so that potentially then gets, if you're swinging a bit more freely as a result, that gets the carry back that the higher flight would have, but then you benefit from the along the ground performance. If we're playing in Arizona where it's all carry based, the current setup's working really well. So lots of plus points from both sides, but probably not quite enough merit to change.
No.
So actually, as much as we'd all like to find 40 yards more, knowing that what you've got is working well and we could squeeze a few yards more out of it, I think that's still, as we said, a really good outcome. From the KBS shaft's point of view, there's a definite differential in them, but I think the suitability of the weight and the balance meant that was going to be hard to beat. But very interesting to see how the flex progression affected the timing, and even the material differences affected the flight a little bit. But great driver swing. I mean, it makes fitting easy when you're watching a swing like that. So.
No, I found it really interesting. As I was saying to you earlier, ignorantly I didn't realise how much the shaft can affect your swing when you're just changing the shaft to a head. And I know there's just marginal differences, but it was interesting with that one how, yes, I did feel slightly more solid behind the ball, but probably not enough to make the changes. That's my feeling at the moment, but it was just a really interesting thing to do.
Yeah, and so it's great to see manufacturers like KBS working on designs like these that are less tour-oriented and more designed for the normal player. You know, it's something that has been going on a while, but the focus has historically always been on tour first and bring it to the market. And these are very much aimed at, say, your average player, which is great to see. So, you know, the more they can do.
If I did
like
change,
that.
I'd change for the colour.
It's a great finish, that. Yeah, it's a great finish.
The rainbow colour is amazing.
And many outfits it goes with.
Yes,
You know, the confidence that can
that's
inspire.
That's what women want.
A load of blokes as well. Yeah, it's all about. I mean, this is a demure outfit today, but yeah, the loudmouth trousers and the John Daly outfits go.
Probably
go
I like
down
the blue
really
because
well.
it matched what I was wearing.
Oh, you could have a multitude of them. Just screw in the right colour for the outfit. Yeah. But no, thank you so much for today.
Thank
Great
you.
fun.
Thanks very much.
And hope everyone enjoyed it. And if you liked it, you know, all the Golf Monthly videos and Precision Golf videos are there for your education.
All I would say is, again, what you were saying about women getting fitted. You know, don't be scared. It's not just for elite golfers, and it's just raising that awareness. And yeah, it's worthwhile because it could make a big difference to your game, and that's what you want. So.
Yeah, any golfer, we're here to help every golfer enjoy the game as much as possible. And if some of that is like today, knowing right what I've got works, great. But if there's some big gains to be had, then everyone
absolutely.
deserves to play.
Yeah.